Hey guys, welcome to CameraPro on the couch. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tonight we've got Jules Ingall and Stephen Finkel. So welcome guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been awesome. So we'll get started with a little introduction. So I don't know if you want to go first, Jules, to tell us a bit about yourself, how you've ended up here.
Ended up here on the couch.
Yeah, here on the couch.
I'm kind of one of those people. I always wanted to be a photographer from a little kid. I had a brother that was really into motorsport, and so I kind of got involved with that and then wanted to be a motorsport photographer. And then so I did that, traveled a lot overseas, did a lot of motorsport photography, came back to Australia and then kind of transitioned into other forms of photography and ended up with Canon. Always been a Canon user. My very first camera was a Canon, and then ended up with the Canon Collective, which led to the role that Stephen and I now do with the Canon Collective.
Yeah, cool. And like, did you find your transition between motorsport and the stuff you're shooting now hard, or how was that transition?
I think when you do something for a long time, you kind of want to change anyway. You know, you end up becoming a bit like, you know, McDonald's, do you want fries with that? You know, you're doing the same stuff over and over. And then so you want to challenge yourself. So I was doing a lot of landscape, and because we traveled so much, just for fun, and then that kind of transitioned into, you know, working with tourism boards and doing landscape photography. Yeah. So kind of just, you know, works itself out through different circumstances.
Yeah. And what about you, Steve? Do you want to tell us a bit about
I was pretty lucky that I had a dad who was a photographer. So we had a darkroom at home. So I actually grew up from a very early age, you know, with developing film. And I think the thing for me was, I think I was about 7, and he showed me some like trick photography, forced perspective stuff. And I went, that's so cool. You can actually create this. And that hooked me, and ever since. And then my first 35mm camera I bought was a Canon, and it's just been, you know, Canon all the way through now. So I just love the brand. It works so well. So
You sort of took more of a like educational path.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff I do. So the Collective actually was a really good fit. When the Collective actually first started, and I went to it was the second Collective event. I missed the first one, then I went to as many as I could. Met Jules at one. We went to a food one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is that the first time we
met?
met?
That was 2014.
Oh.
Yeah. So there you go. But yeah, so it's kind of grown from there. So I've kind of liked the idea of letting people understand, learn about photography, and teaching them photography, and see the joy on people's faces when they can actually create something.
Yeah. Aha moment when they're.
Yeah, when it all clicks together. So. Click, look at that, I've got a bit of a click, geez. We'll talk about that later.
Placement there.
Yeah, cool. I guess to help our viewers in terms of some of the questions they've all sent in, is there any kind of key thing, I don't know who wants to take the lead on this question, but about succeeding in work, getting paid work, and how do you succeed in that kind of thing?
Jules, I can jump in a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I do some freelance stuff, and look, one of the biggest things if you are going to become a working photographer is to get the business side of it sorted out. That's really important. Most people can, they can handle, by that stage, they can handle their camera, they can take the shots, but you really have to run it like a business, you know, invoicing people, giving people quotes and that type of thing. A lot of people don't, they kind of fudge around that, but get that right, and that will help you get work. Yeah, because people see you as more professional.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Do you have any sort of experience or, I guess, tips for people that are going to try and do that thing?
Yeah, I think like when Stephen and I both started in photography, it was probably a lot easier. You know, I was the only female photographer when I started in motorsport, and it was quite easy. It was easy. But I think one of the biggest things was the connections and, you know, all the networking. The business side of it's really important, because you want to, the thing now is, because of digital photography and even with iPhones and entry-level cameras, there's so many more photographers out there, but there's also so much more work because everything's internet-based. So many more companies are looking for photographers. Yeah. So I think, you know, it's just using your networks, using your contacts and people that you know, and being professional. Always try and be as professional as you can.
Yeah, right. And I guess on that point, and maybe touching back on the point about you saying how you kind of wanted to move and grow. I guess, how do you keep yourselves motivated when you're doing the same things all the time, or what do you think stands out to keep you motivated?
We get a lot of feedback on the collective page where people say, you know, they're really flat or they've lost their passion. And I think everybody does kind of go through that. And I don't think it's a bad thing to have a little break. Like, you don't want to force photography because it's such an artsy kind of thing. You know, it's not clinical. So if you do feel that you have lost a bit of your passion, put your camera away for a week or two. And then I think, it's always trying to challenge and try new things, and, you know, and that's what we try and do as well with the collective, you know, with the challenges and with questions, and always trying to challenge people so that they keep that spark alive.
And one thing, this comes up quite often, I do podcasting. I do a couple of photography podcasts, and we've covered this off quite a few times because everyone kind of hits that kind of lose their mojo. Passion projects are one of the best things you can do. And, you know, what's a passion project? Something you really love, photograph it, because if you love it, you're going to pick the camera up and you want to take photos of it. And that can be for your eyes only. You don't ever have to show that to the world. Or it could be something that if you're proud of it, you can then show it to the world. But that helps you build your skills and kind of keeps the creative juices running.
Particularly if you are a photographer as a job, do things that not because you're being paid for them, but because you want to do it.
I think that's it. Look, I mean, it's kind of changed a bit. It used to be always personal projects, but now we kind of hear it referred to as passion projects, which I kind of like that because it is about getting that passion back into photography. So
And what's your kind of passion project, do you think?
I do a lot of different things.
No, that's a hard question.
Well, sometimes when I travel, I do some really strange things. Like I've done a lot of road trips to the US, and I was photographing fire hydrants. And there's such a diversity. You think fire hydrants? There's such a diversity when you start photographing and look at fire hydrants.
I'll never look at a fire hydrant the same now.
Yeah, that's right, you won't. And the other one's street lights. I've photographed street lights all around the world, and they're so different. And it's just, and they're not for anyone to really see. It's just a little thing that I do. I just have something. And there's many other things as well. But,
And so I guess going on that path, I know you brought along a little example image of some street style photography. I don't know if we want to show that.
Yeah, there's and because I do so much street photography, one of the things is street photography, you have to really have your reflexes. You need to be ready to shoot whenever something happens interesting, you see something in front of the camera. And interesting, this particular photo was taken at a Canon Collective event at Byron Bay. It was hot air ballooning. So it was my first time ever going up in a hot air balloon, which is anyone who gets opportunity to get your camera, get in a hot air balloon, it is really unique. But there was a young Erin who worked for Canon at the time, loved taking selfies. And in the balloon, I went up with Peter Eastway, and most people know who Peter Eastway is, a landscape photographer. Anyway, Erin's taking a selfie. She pulled the camera out to take the selfie, and I knew she was going to take the selfie. Peter's just believing that she's taking his picture, so he's goofing up for the camera. And I was just in the right position and be able to get the picture so you can see the back of her screen. You can see that she's taking the selfie. And again, it's that being able to react quickly.
Can we get a chance to show that image? Yeah, cool.
Perfect.
That's really cool. And I think that kind of quick, agile, in the street style stuff is key to everything, right?
It is, because things happen very quickly on the street. And one of the best things for anyone who wants to do street photography is sit there and people watch. Just observe how people behave, because you can actually start to see things before they happen. It's a bit of a kind of a, I don't know, sixth sense. You probably get it too with some of the sports and stuff. You know, you're waiting for something to happen.
You're the expert at the street photography. I tried to do it for that challenge that we had, and it's
Not your thing?
I loved it. But what Stephen's saying, I'd see something and then it'd go past, and I'd be like, oh,
no, you've got to jump in.
So,
And Jules, what's something like your passion project then?
oh no, don't ask me that. I like doors. If you're going to go fire hydrants, I like doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I did doors. I was in Italy in 2019. I did doors because Italy and Greece, amazing.
And Europe, I did Eastern Europe. I was fascinated by all the doors. I don't know. I really like and it's so cliche, but I love like sunrise. I love getting up, you know, when no one else is awake. At the moment, it's 4 a.m.
Pretty
so
early.
it's a little bit early. I got to the beach at 4:30 the other morning and was too late, so it's getting a little bit early. But I love just, you know, that peace, and to me, that's kind of, it's just kind of your downtime. There's no one around, but it's very cliche. So.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting point because a lot of photographers are lone wolf photographers. So Jules, like, you like enjoy that time to get out and just do it by yourself, and that's myself as well.
Yeah.
When I do street photography, I just like to get out by myself because I want to just go. I don't want to kind of have to be there somewhere.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're talking about passion projects, then it's not like you're not on a time frame.
Yeah.
Or, you're not
And sometimes you'll do it and come away with no photos at all, but it doesn't matter. So there's no pressure.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to a professional shoot, you're thinking and you have to, you know, and you're dealing with people and communicating. And it's funny because I think a lot of photographers are quite introverted and, you know, real loners.
Yeah.
But you also have to be really good with people,
Yeah.
you know, in the commercial sense, to deal with people.
Yeah, totally.
So it's kind of a bit of a contradiction.
Yeah, so when you get that time to yourself and doing the thing that you love, it's pretty cool combo.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll move on a little bit and talk about gear.
Yep.
So we had some questions come in about maybe like what is some key aspects when you're picking up a camera, or what is something that you would have been happy to be told for the first time so you know how to use it, I guess. For beginners out there, what's the key thing?
I think learning about exposure. You know, really learning exposure triangle, understanding the relationship between aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. A lot of people do struggle. Like, I teach photography, and so it's the area I know that people really struggle with. But once people get it, it is that aha moment, and they can actually start like, oh, okay, that's how it all kind of works. So I think for anyone starting out, the best thing to do is to really kind of hone your skills on that, to really understand how they get the best out of the equipment.
Yeah, cool. And in terms of focusing modes, is there anything, I suppose it's so different depending on what you're shooting, but a question that was asked prior to tonight was, about is there a specific mode that you guys prefer shooting in, or any suggestion in what you're shooting and what you should use?
It depends. Yeah, it really depends what you're shooting.
Yeah.
Because if you're shooting a still subject, you know, you just go straight into one shot. But if you're shooting something that's moving, especially with the technology now, like we've both got the new R5 cameras, and with their focusing and tracking technology, like you almost feel like you're cheating because they really, it just makes it so easy. So that's a bit of a tricky question because it would really depend on what you're actually photographing and what you're trying to achieve with the photograph. Because even if you're you know, photographing something moving, do you want to freeze it or do you want the motion? Or so it kind of it depends what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it is very subject dependent. Yeah.
And I guess on that, in terms of the same advice for exposure metering and like what do you guys have any go-to like evaluators or
Spot metering. Yeah, look, and again, it sometimes depends on the subject and what you're shooting and that type of stuff. And I mean, sometimes there's parts of it you really want, you know, a little bit underexposed. So you'll be looking for the brightest part. So you're metering off the brightest part of the image. So it will depend on the subject. And it's one of those skills you learn as a photographer. And I mean, you do a lot of studio stuff. So it's kind of a different ball game there as well. So you get your lights set up and
it really depends. But again, because most people now shoot in RAW and with Lightroom, Photoshop or whatever you use, you know, on a RAW image, as long as you get the image mostly right, you know, you can't completely overexpose or underexpose it, but as long as it's mostly right, you can fix like most things in editing anyway. I mean, I'll almost take a photo knowing how I'm going to edit it, which is, you know, a bit, I know some people don't agree, but...
It's experience and it's the way you shoot, I guess, because everyone's different.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like most people, where they make a mistake shooting when they're first starting, is that they'll blow the highlights out. So you're actually better to shoot slightly under.
Yeah.
Because you can it's amazing. I'm always amazed how much you can pull out of the shadows.
Yeah.
So you can shoot that a little bit under, so you know you're preserving the highlights, because once highlights turn white, they're white pixels, there's nothing there, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So
And I guess, well, having the benefit of the R5 and I guess the dynamic range that comes with that. Quite
Yeah, you're kind of cheating a bit with that, aren't you?
but that's a good tip, I guess, is that it's good to shoot that way.
yes, and because Jules said, you know, because of the raw files, you can do so much with it. And like I said, it just gives you that extra kind of leeway to be better recover
Yeah.
shots. I know heaps of times I've salvaged a shot that I've got wrong, but been able to salvage it.
Or you've gone back, like I'll go back to photos from a few years ago and then re-edit them, or, you know, just with your knowledge that you've got now, and then I actually like the photo, whereas,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But I think I'd encourage even a beginner to, as quickly as possible, learn to shoot manual and shoot in raw, because the faster you do that, you just open yourself up to so many more, you know, you'll learn a lot better, because if you're shooting in manual, you're going to work out what, you know, rather than when you've got it in, even in semi-manual, you're not quite understanding what effects your settings have got, whereas if you're in full manual, so I would always encourage people to try straight up, do that, and just play, you know, take the same photo with different settings and see what results you get.
Yeah. And I suppose if you're a bit worried to jump straight in, it's that, maybe go and study or research the exposure triangle so you can fully understand how each thing plays in that.
And I
That
think
is probably the key thing, isn't
it is. And I think we're living in a really blessed time for photography, because when I started shooting, if I messed up a roll of film, I messed up a roll of film.
And you didn't know till the next day either. I've done that before.
So these days people can safely experiment. You know, I say to people when they first get their camera, just take it down the back paddock or wherever they are and shoot, and just try different things, because they're digital files. They're not costing anything really, only your time. So you can see the results that way.
And in terms of editing and that kind of thing, do you guys have any specific workflow that you go, like, obviously everyone has their own workflow, but maybe passing some of the tips over in how you develop your workflow?
Yep. You want to go first, Jules? Or?
There you go.
Oh, I go first. I'd tell you one of the things I use, which I think I used it on every Canon EOS camera I've had, is that's the Canon utility that comes with the camera. So when I don't pull the cards out, I leave the cards in the camera, I just connect with the USB cable to the camera, and I just let it capture the images, and I've pre-made the destination folder for them, and I use that, so that's the starting point, because it's just so easy. You can go out, shoot all day, come back, throw it on, and it knows what you downloaded previously. It comes with the camera, it works really well. So that's my first part.
Don't do that.
I'm just going to quickly stop. We're going to take a little quick break because we're having a little bit of audio difficulty.
Yep.
So we'll take a quick break. So sorry, everyone, and we'll be back very soon.
Here's audio. Oh, yeah.
2, 1.
Hey guys, so sorry about that, all fixed up. I'm sure you can probably hear me a lot better now. So we'll just jump back in. So you were talking about your flow and how that...
Yeah, so basically getting the images off the camera is the first part.
Yep.
Then basically what I'll do is we'll go through and I'll sort the images into ones that I'm going to work with. I typically, a lot of the images I try to do very little with them.
Yep.
I'll shoot some stuff that I know that I'm actually going to do something with them a bit more later. But a lot of stuff I just try and shoot, do some quick adjustments, and get them ready to move out, because time's money. You just don't want to sit there too long.
And do you use a specific program? What sort of...
I actually use Elements.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got Photoshop and I've got Lightroom, but I just find I can get in and out because usually I'm watermarking stuff. Just made a brush for watermarking, just makes it super easy.
Yeah, true.
Because I'm only doing such minor stuff. If I'm doing more heavy lifting type stuff, I'll use for Photoshop. But yeah, Lightroom, I don't know. You probably use Lightroom, Jules, but
Yeah, I use Lightroom and Photoshop.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of, I don't know, do you go through and style the ones you like, or do
Yeah, I don't do it the way he does it at all. I take my card out of the camera.
Yeah.
But I think, because, like, and I'm pretty sure everybody does it, you'll go to a shoot and take a heap of photos. You just way overshoot.
Yeah.
So what I tend to do is I download them and I really quickly go through them, and I either 1-star them, which means I'm going to, delete them. So, they're out of focus or they're just no good at all. So I delete them, and then I give them either a 5-star if I think they're going to be good, and then a 2-star if I think, they're probably not worth keeping. And I try and narrow down, like, say, a 1-hour shoot to 100 photos maximum, so that you're not keeping, and you're not, you go back to your hard drives and you've got all these photos that they're just so slightly different. And so I try and really quickly get rid of as many as I can and just keep the best ones.
Yeah. And Jules, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed it changes the R5, the number of keeper shots you get. So I've actually been able to try hold myself down. I've been deliberately shooting less, because you take a lot of insurance safety shots. You always do it in film, you bracket shooting, you took a lot of different shots, knowing that one of them would work, but you didn't know which one was going to work. But with the digital systems now, they're getting so damn good that you just know you're going to have some good shots in there.
And when you're doing portrait shooting, like, you really want it to be super, like, I'm really fussy and I zoom right in and make sure it's really sharp.
Yep.
And then with that eye tracking on the R5, 99% of them are perfect. So, you do end up,
You've got to learn to cull. You don't have to shoot.
you have to be brutal. You've got to be, and also, like, you keep photos that you really, you want to keep the ones that you love. I think it's really, you really have to be brutal about.
Otherwise, it's too hard to decide if it's the one that's slightly different.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. And then, the editing, it depends what you're shooting, and for your workflow there, that all depends. Changes with every different type of shoot.
Yeah, cool. And so in terms of like design elements when you're looking through your camera, what is it that you guys tend to focus on? Or let's sort of say about your portraiture maybe, what is it are you working off, like, rule of thirds, or how do you kind of, do you have any...
I hate those rules. Yeah. And I think, the rule of thirds is really good if you're a beginner, because sometimes people tend to, put the subject in the middle, and obviously the rule of thirds tells you not to do that. So, but, a lot of the time, and we did this as a question, we did it on the collective page a little while back, where we said, what are the rules? And then a lot of those rules, if you break them, you end up with a much better photo. So I think you just have to use your eye and shoot what you think. And even after you've shot it, crop it a bit, change your crop, and I don't like those sort of rules. I think, in camera you can do some really cool stuff with your white balance and, with overexposing, underexposing to get different high key or whatever. But I think you should try not to focus on the rules and just go with, like, what you naturally see.
And would you think the same kind of...
Yeah, and look, one of the questions people struggle with, I know, when they first start is composition.
Yes.
And so there's some really good things you can do if you want to learn about composition. Let's just go to an art gallery and look at some artworks, because the composition is very well done. So, and you start to see how things work together. And I don't know if you remember, Jules, the very first Canon Collective thing we met on, we were doing food photography, and there was a food stylist, and she's placing the things, and she's doing everything in odd numbers, because in odd numbers is how nature is, and it looks better. So it's just weird how sometimes, just by changing something like removing a pea from the plate.
Yeah, she was so specific. We're standing there going, "Oh, just chuck it all." And she was like, had tweezers out.
yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, but it did look good, like it worked.
But I think one of the great things about photography is if you had, 20 photographers and you sat them here and said, take a photo of that, they're all going to take a different photo. Some will zoom in, crop, you might crop half of the face out and just have a really striking someone. Everyone does something different, and at the same time, when someone looks at a photo, you'll have 20 people look at the same picture and have different feedback. So I really think a lot of it, look at other work, look at what you like, but you need your own kind of style. And so your style might not necessarily be popular or whatever, but if you're a photographer, it's because you're kind of artistic. Even if you do it as a hobby, it's because you've got a bit of an artistic mind. And so you have to kind of just go with your gut feeling on composition and, how you want to, what your vision is of how you want something to look. And everybody's totally different.
Yeah, true.
And nothing's right or wrong.
No, and like you said, you've picked up the camera for a reason. So there's something in you that wants to be creative. So you go with it.
I don't think you could just go to someone and say, be a photographer, because then that's when they're going to go, right, the rule of thirds says I have to do this and I have to expose it perfect and then you're just basically getting a photo of exactly what you're seeing, which,
True.
And it's interesting because sometimes like people will come, they might learn photography, and sometimes they just can't get the composition, they just can't get the framing. So some people naturally are gifted, they just pick it up straight away. Great eye for photography, they just look amazing what they're framing up. So it's hard to teach it. It is really, really hard to teach someone. And I think you've got to have some type of creative flair to be able to do it, I think. So I don't think everyone can be a photographer, unfortunately.
No. Yeah. And like we said, that you can't overly teach an eye and how to
Yeah.
see it. So,
Yeah. Sure.
Cool. And so you teach a lot the podcast you run.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you?
We run two different, I do three podcasts now, but I do the two photography ones. One is basically we talk to, and we've had a couple on the couch people, we've had Darren Jew, and it's really good because we can unpack a lot of information and people have more ear time than they have eye time, so they can pop it on the car and listen. So we talk one-on-one with photographers and we learn about from the very early days how they got into photography and the things they love. And then Focus, which is basically just focus on a single subject. So we'll just talk about one particular thing in each, and they're usually what we call the commute podcast because they're usually 25 minutes. But basically it'll just be like, might be talking about back button focusing or something like that and the benefits, or it might be something else. We talk about so many different, I think in that series now we're up to like about 140 plus episodes.
very good.
Yeah.
What do you have?
Actually, it's funny. The people we did one on modelling. We've done a couple of model ones and posing and that's like a big thing for people. Like people who want to shoot people, how to pose people, how to get the best out of your model as well. So those type of ones, and I think they're good because people really connect with that.
And it's something that that not a lot of people want to do because it's so
We
fun.
want to make people, if you take a photo of someone, we want to make them look good, and I think that's what you strive as a photographer, you want to produce good images and bring the best out of your subject as well.
Yeah, cool. And so you do a lot of freelance. What's the kind of main freelance stuff you're doing?
Yeah, so now, obviously I was doing a lot of tourism and, that sort of travel photography, but I think even before COVID, I started to move away from it because there's, the whole influencers, it just, not me. So I kind of started, and a lot of people were working for free, so that kind of ruined it for me. So I got more into portrait. So now I do a lot of people, portrait work. I was doing sort of just studio, so product and things as well, but I really love portrait. I love working with models, and but I do heaps with little kids, like little 2, and I love it. Like the little kids, they're so fun.
Yeah.
The parents are in the background going, do this, do that, and I'm like, no, just do what you want, just have fun. And you get amazing, you know, like that really candid, natural, you know, I always take in something that they can get really messy, and kids love it, and you just, I really like working with people. So that's my thing at the moment.
Yeah.
I love it.
Cool. Okay, we're going to move on to talk a little bit about Canon Collective and because you guys are the community managers of that, right? So what kind of led you guys to end up, or do you guys, Stephen, what kind of led you to end up in this role, I guess?
I suppose, look, it was when the Canon Collective started was when I went to the very second event, and I just instantly loved the camaraderie. It was just a fantastic group, and so basically tried to get to many as possible. And then when the Facebook group opened, there was something I started, which has kind of been going for 5 years. It's a Saturday question. So every Saturday morning I asked a question, and we're doing it for 5 years, and that was well before we were in these roles. Because I just liked the idea, and it got people talking, because there was a big group of people, they weren't exchanging ideas. So this was floated an idea, and sometimes it was hypothetical. If you went back in time and you had a time machine and you could shoot, you know, for 1 hour somewhere in the world, where would you go to? Just listening to people's responses, it's just amazing. Where some people said, I'd like to go back and shoot my mother and father's wedding because they didn't have any wedding photos. Yeah, so that type of stuff. So that's where, and of course then Jules and I, we've enjoyed starting our second year now doing this role. So we've introduced a few new things.
Yep.
So we do a spotlight every week. So in the community, we've got some amazing talent. Just some of the photographers we've got, just absolutely beautiful work.
But even just people that just do it for a hobby, you know, they're
One of
photos are amazing.
One of those spotlights are just people who just do it as a
You
hobby.
approach them and say, we want to spotlight you, and they're like, oh, I can't believe it. And we're like, that your work is amazing. Like, we don't know who's professional and we don't know anything about the people other than what they share on the page.
Yeah.
And there's some really incredible things.
So the spotlight, so you approach them and then...
Yeah, we approach them, and so every Monday a new photographer goes up, and what happens is obviously they get their little spot there and people can interact with them. And so we're trying to, I suppose, encourage people and help people, because people share a bit of their story. And we've had some beautiful stories, like people have struggled, haven't they?
Yeah.
And how photography's been a kind of a bit of a saviour for them. So other people in the group might be going through similar type of battles. Reading those stories and seeing that there can be a good outcome, I think is really good. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And the other thing we started, Jules does a challenge every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And that's to get people, again, trying to get them out with the camera.
Yeah, that's good. That's been really
a
good.
really good example was that one you did with the effect where you blur the background.
Adam Minsky.
Okay.
It's where you have, one point of the photo in focus, and then it's a Photoshop technique, and the rest of the image is blurred. And so, we kind of give an example, this is what it is, talk about what the technique is, and then step by step, this is how you achieve this result. But, so many people said they'd never even heard of it before, but then gave it a try, and it was really,
And we had one of the members posted.
Oh, yeah, and
she actually won an award, or?
She with her photo from it. She'd never tried it before, and then she entered it into, I thought it was into a calendar, or I don't know.
One of his pictures go on a calendar.
It was amazing. It was such a beautiful photo. So yeah, we were so proud.
So I got them thinking a little bit differently about the photography.
They're like the little proud parents.
Yeah. And so you have it's a big group now.
Yeah, I think there's nearly 20,000 members
nearly 20,000.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's great.
And your question, someone asked earlier, what do you think of it suddenly, or how long do you take to prepare that question?
Sometimes the question, I'll come up with it literally 5 minutes before I post it.
Quicker. I have to do a post. What's this week's question?
Sometimes I'll think about, and I'll be thinking about something all week, and then I won't ask it, or I don't think it's the right time to ask it. So it's kind of like, I don't know how I come up with them. And Jules has a spreadsheet, and she did originally say, I'll put all your questions in there, but because I just make them up when,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard to.
He's meant to plan,
Yeah.
and you know, we have a meeting about the month ahead,
Yep.
and Stevens is always blank.
To be advised.
Yeah, to be right. It's kind of like, I think it comes about from that candid photography that I love. It's kind of like you're not planning for it. You just go out and let it happen.
And it depends what happens on the page during the week. You know, there might be something that you see is, you know, it creates a question
Yeah,
that the
true.
group for the group to answer.
And sometimes that's what I do. It's topical. It's topical on what's happened. Yeah, sometimes.
right.
Yeah.
And do you guys, where do you see it going? Do you see anything progressing in that kind of?
Well, we've had some fantastic growth in the last, you know, little bit. There's people joining, because I think as people find the group, and the advantage for anybody, and even though it's a Canon Collective, you can come in if you shoot one of the other brands. We don't kind of, we're accepting of all photographers.
We do judge you a little bit.
No, don't just. So I encourage people, if they're not already part of the Canon Collective who are watching tonight, jump in, because it's a great resource. Because someone has a question about something, they'll ask that question, and usually about half a dozen people will jump in and give you advice and help you get through that problem. So it's a great resource, and it's a really, how would you say, safe environment. We don't tolerate, we
Not that we haven't really.
we've been
had
lucky
any
lately.
issues.
We've had to kind of, you know, come on strong with a few people to make sure they towed the line. But we want a safe environment for people. We don't want people.
Anyone can silly problem.
Anything. You can ask any question. You know, the only silly question is the one you don't ask.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the thing is too, you know, with photography and with some of these groups, and you know, they're either a group where people just post their photos, so it's Instagram
Yes.
in a Facebook group, or there are there's some not nice people in some groups, and that it just doesn't happen in there. It's a really nice community of people. Everyone has the same interest, and that's one thing that we wanted to do, and you know, which obviously Canon started when they started the page with all their people that were running it, was it's not just a page to share your photos. You can learn, you can bounce off each other, and so back to your question about where do we see the page going, you know, we constant, like, it's not our page, it's the community's page, and we're always saying, if you've got feedback, if there's anything you want to see, we really want the page to progress as to what the community wants to see. So we want to change it, we want to keep challenging people, we want people to feel like they, you know, it's their page, and we're just like the, you know, the caretakers of it, like managing it. So
I think the biggest thing that we've initiated and is the Click Awards.
Yeah, cool.
Because what we felt is that a lot of people take pictures and family and friends like them and that sort of thing, but they're not trying to the level where they'd put it into certain competitions. But we wanted to create something where people could get feedback.
and didn't feel intimidated.
So people can enter a picture, and it's judged on 6 different criterias, and it's scored on those. So you actually see your score, and it's scored by 3 judges, each image. And you get that information, so you can go away and you can look at it and say, okay, I did really good in impact, I did good in originality, but my composition and technique were a bit down. So you know where you've got to build your strengths up, like that type of stuff. So, and I think that's the strength of the community, is that we've actually brought so many people along and educated so many people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we want to continue, that education process.
Yeah, that it's not just a place with, that there's value in the group. So if you're a member of the group, and so the Click Awards, there are amazing prizes as well. But
And
I think-
CameraPro is is one of the sponsors in there. So
I
fantastic.
think one of the benefits of it is, though, like, there's so many people that say, I'm not good enough, my work's not good enough. There's a novice section for the Click Awards, and, you know, even if you're not going to win, you're going to get this amazing feedback. So it's probably the people that are least likely to win that will benefit the most from entering pictures, because they'll get this feedback, and like Stephen said, they'll be able to look at their photos then and have an expert's, advice on, maybe these are the areas that you actually do need to look at you know, working on. This is what you're great at, and this is where you could
And
improve.
that's what everyone needs in
Yeah.
work, is that some other eyes to look
Yeah.
at it, you know.
Yep, and it's three people look at every image,
Yeah, awesome.
and then those scores are averaged. So you're getting a balanced view of it. So it's not just, I mean, sometimes like one person, you know, photography is subjective. So, you know, people can like an image or not like an image. This way, at least three people looking at it, you're going to get a pretty good
All the-
Yeah.
indication on how you fared as an image. So,
And so, because the Clicker Awards are running right now, right?
yeah, so
Yeah.
you can enter right now. So one of the things is you have to be a member of the collective.
Okay.
So you can just jump on the collective Facebook page, sign up. Now, one thing that Jules and I will always stress is there is some questions, member questions,
Okay.
and quite often we have to message people, say, hey, we'd love to join you, but you need to answer the question. So you do need to say,
And there's no right or wrong answers.
No.
Like, because one of the questions is, what camera do you use? If you say an iPhone, we're not going to go, oh, you can't come in there. Like, I don't even know why the question.
no, well, the question is, one of the things is it's an Australian group, so you have to be Australian.
Yep.
So we asked, you know, do you live in Australia? What camera? And the camera thing is just more, if people want to share. Some people put this massive, great
Oh, yeah.
list of.
This is my lens.
It's good. It's good for us to have an idea of, and it also gives us an idea of what to look at with the group.
Yeah.
If we know, you know, what range, what people are, you know, what the members use and
Yeah.
what.
If they're shooting like a M50 or they're going 1DX Mark III, you know, kind of know where they're at.
Yeah.
But the most important question is the last one, is do you agree to the rules of the group? So we need people to agree to that, and then you're in, basically. Yeah.
And so, how is the application process? How does it work with the Clicker Awards?
For the Click Awards, basically, is once you enter the Click Awards, there's a website,
Yep.
which you'll get all that information through the collective.
Yep.
And basically, you'll just go through the process of signing up. So it's typical kind of your name, details, that type of stuff. And one of the most important things, I suppose, with the Click Awards is if you decide, you put up to 6 images. If you decide later on that you want to put extra images in, once you create your entry, that's fixed, like you can't add one to it. But there is something I can announce, CameraPro, that we've got a special code called Click on the Couch. So it's Click on the Couch, and you can put 6 images in for the price of 5.
Oh,
And that will run until it closes on the 6th of December.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a special code for tonight. For everyone
That's
watching tonight.
special, yeah.
There was a special at the start.
But that was a short,
But it was
short one.
finished. This is for
anyone that
anyone.
watches this video sees Click on the Couch, they can use that all the way to the end.
Okay, there you
All
go.
right.
Heard it here first.
That's it.
Awesome. And I guess one benefit is the fact that they are getting all of that, I guess, feedback. How do you think is it best to use that? Like, how do they take that on board and then go on and improve on those areas?
Yeah, well, basically, because they'll see the scorecard will actually tell them each area. So if they can see constantly they're really strong in a couple of areas, they don't need to work there. But if they, you know, like it might be their technique, so they can go off if it's a composition maybe. Some people got, you know, they get everything right, but the composition's a little bit off, and you know, Crooked Horizons is one. That's a really bad one. But some people make the mistake and they don't realise. So it's
Yeah, so
holding
that thing about rules, that's my pet hate. The crooked horizon. So that's one rule. You have to have a straight horizon.
And if you're shooting with your Canon cameras, most of them have a built-in level, which is good about the R5 because you can actually see it through the viewfinder as well. Cool. So it's really good.
Okay. Awesome. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to share about your own journey or like what you find is so aspiring to be in the Canon Collective or anything that highlights.
I think it's just the community. Like that's what we really love about it. How it's such a good community. Canon are so they're so supportive about it all. With you know ensuring that the group first of all stays together. Like you know they're really behind it all, which is great. And it's just a really nice environment. We never have any dramas with it. And it's not just about I mean, everybody shares their photos, which is great, and we love seeing people's photos in the feed. But also, it's a space where you can grow your photography.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're really keen to do.
I think it is. It's really encouraging when we actually see photographers actually get their momentum from the group. People who started very early, and they just get build the confidence, and that's great. And yeah, we're like the proud parents, like I said before.
And then also, if there's, like, we always encourage anyone, if they don't feel comfortable putting a question or something on the page, Stephen and I are always open to people just sending us a private message, and we get heaps of them.
Get heaps of messages, yeah.
People sort of saying, you know, I'm not confident about this, or I don't feel comfortable. It's absolutely no problems. We welcome people doing it.
Yeah. So that's another thing they can do, basically, jump in and just send us a question.
Okay, we have a viewer question coming in. What's something you personally would like to execute or at least try that you may not have?
Try,
I wonder what you'd like to try, Jules, that you haven't done yet.
Is there any sort of style or gear?
Yeah, everything. I want everything.
Do you guys always only shoot? Do you shoot any lighting, like artificial lighting?
Yeah, because I studio shoot, so I do.
And I normally use speed lights. I've got some 600 speed lights, which I use. I use them for street photography as well. With the wireless trigger, it's great. You can pop them around places and pop a bit of light in here and there. But I think
I'd love to do more with underwater photography. Like I think, you know, one of my favourite Canon Collective experiences were the Lady Elliot trips. And I actually specifically got my dive licence to go on that collective event. And then since then, you know, I've dived every opportunity I can. But the underwater photography, there's just I just can't nail it. There's such a knack to it. And I have such admiration for good underwater photographers. Like people like Darren G, his work is unbelievable. I'd love to do more of that and nail that a bit better. That's my wish list.
I've been fortunate. I've been able to travel quite a bit. I do love travel photography. So I've been able to travel. I just love getting into new places I haven't seen before and just getting out and exploring it. I did a big road trip across the US and I spent 6 weeks in a 66 Cadillac with a mate, and we drove. It was just such an awesome experience, just having the cameras. I took 2 cameras. I was shooting with 2 cameras. I just had different lenses on each camera just so I wasn't changing lenses.
What kind of lenses were you using?
I think I had, at the time, I had the 28-135 EF lens. And the other one I might have I think it was just a kit lens. It was just like the 18-55 kit. Just for weight and that type of stuff. So.
Cool. Yeah, we have another question coming in. What kind of process do you go through when choosing the click competition photos?
Well, people have to choose what they want to put in the click. But I'll give people a tip, because one of the things that people, and we've seen a lot of this talked about in the group, people struggle what to pick. So I have this process of elimination. So what you do is go and print out, pick 20 favourite pictures, print them out just on 4x6 and put them on your fridge, put them around the place everywhere you can see them, and just walk past them and then just keep looking at each picture over a period of time and just pull them down, the one that one didn't make the cut. So you're just eliminating, so you get down to hopefully just a small number of pictures that you can choose from. So I use that process, and some people have kind of said that's, they're going to try that. But you got to have, it is daunting. My hard drives, I've got multiple hard drives of storage with images, and Jules will be the same.
And
you know, it's like,
is it a category thing?
There's
categories. Yeah. And there's 2 streams actually, which we should talk about. One is edited, and one is processed. So what processed is typically pretty much like straight out of camera. So basically images that you can crop it, you can do color correction, black and white conversion, no removing of elements, adding elements like composite images. So it's really celebrating what the camera's seeing. That's what the processed one is. And then the edited image, knock your socks off. Composites, do whatever you like. If you're doing composites, we do ask that all the elements in the composite are your work. You're not using stock images in there. shoot all the elements yourself, put it together as composite. Fantastic.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere, going back to your travel story, is that your favourite trip that you've done in terms of photography trips? Or?
I think the favourite one was the last one I did, which was Italy, just before I dodged a bullet. I got back in December 2019. I did Italy, and first time there, and just absolutely loved it. Like it
Was
was
that your first trip there?
to Italy, yeah. I've never been to Italy before, so it was kind of like I've done Germany and other parts of Europe and London and all that, but it was just something, didn't I? Like Florence is just amazing.
Italy's, Europe.
Yeah, it's just
Can't wait to travel again.
Yeah. Where's your favourite place you went?
I hate that question because I've lived overseas.
Okay.
I'll give you,
Where did you live?
lived in Japan and Germany and the UK. And so when we lived in Germany, we travelled a lot. We used to, my boyfriend was working in Germany, which is why we lived there. And the company he was working for, they had to go to Italy quite regularly. So we would just, go down to Italy for the weekend.
Yeah.
We went to Monaco a few times, just, for a few days. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But I reckon Canada.
Yeah.
What?
Why Canada?
Oh, who doesn't love Canada? It's like, it's a photographer's dream. But again, it's a bit cliche.
Yeah.
Estonia, that would be my next one. That's just, kind of Italy, castles, really old, just stunning. And the Maldives.
couldn't get that underwater shot.
New Zealand, I love New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Zealand's great.
I took my GoPro diving in the Maldives to 20 metres and I didn't realise they don't go down. I cracked it anyway.
There
Should
you
have
go.
taken a camera.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if we have no other viewer questions coming in, and there's nothing else you guys want to add to the Click Awards or any other final tips for that? Or
Yeah, I'd say that this is an opportunity for people to be able to see where they're at with their photography, and I think that's the important thing. Like, we can all sit there and look at photos and think they're great, but it's always good to have another set of eyes look at them.
Yeah.
And because it's in complete privacy, that once you log in and set up your account with the Click Awards, your images, when the judge will go into that, and only you see them. So it's completely safe. So if you enter a shot and it didn't do well, you're not going to show it. But if you did really well, you're probably going to show it right. You get the grading right.
I think it's really good for people who are a bit, overwhelmed about these sort of things. Even if, I think the more photos you enter, the better, because you'll get consistent feedback across all of them with your styles. But, even if you only want to enter one, it's a really good, if you've never entered a competition, and because there's the novice one for people under 2 years experience with shooting, it's a really good opportunity for everyone to have a go. And on the Canon Collective page, it's pinned to the top.
Yeah.
So if you want information, on how to enter.
Just search Click Awards within the group.
Yeah,
and you'll get
but
everything.
it's pinned to the top of the page, so you can't miss it. It's pretty easy to find.
I'll share a little story, a quick story.
Yeah.
I put some images into one of the local shows, and I put in an image that was AFL women's football, and it was an action shot, and I put it in, and it won first prize, right? And they have a kind of a night before they announce it, we can go down and talk to the judges, and you get to see what's been judged, and the judges don't know who you are. So I've walked around looking at the photos, so yeah, I've got a first on that. So I've asked them, the judge, I said, why did this picture win? Like, I'm like really annoyed. He's going, and then he started explaining the reasons why that picture won. That's what you're going to get in the report card from the Click Awards. That you don't normally get that information.
Yeah, because normally, there's the winner, and that's it.
Yes.
And so you're like, why didn't I win? I thought my photo was like the best photo I've ever seen. Why didn't I win? Whereas then they'll be like, it's a really good opportunity. That's why I feel like, for anybody to enter, you've got nothing to lose.
You're just going to gain something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done on you.
Yeah.
I feel like that photo should go on the Canon Collective page
Oh,
now.
yeah,
Should do, should do.
Yeah, you have
Well,
to share it now.
Well, it's funny because one of the other shots, which I took hot air ballooning with Canon Collective, it won International Landscape Award. So
It's funny where you'll have a photo and you think that is, you know, the best photo I've ever taken. You know, you put it on Instagram or something and you get 5 likes, and then you put, oh, quick, I just snapped this quickly this morning. I just whack up the saturation and, you know, whack up the contrast and put it on, and like it just goes mental. So I think it's much better feedback that you're going to get from the Click Awards than from your Instagram followers.
exactly. Yeah. Instagram likes doesn't always equate to a great image. So if you want to have, if you want to be really honest about your photography and really understand where you're at, that's where it really shines.
And it's all private. Like, you're not exposing yourself at all to anyone. Judges don't. You're just a number to the judges. They don't know your name. So
And that's important. It does. When you enter, no matter what your file name is, that's stripped out, and all it is just given an entry number, and there's no correlation for the judges to even know.
So they don't know who they're judging.
They're blind judging. Everything's blind judged.
That's good. That's good to know,
I think that's because it's overwhelming. It's, you know, everyone's scared about being judged on their work, whereas this is not meant to be, oh, that's a really bad photo. It's meant to be everything's
It's meant to be an educational
constructive.
process, And for people who haven't jumped in, there is some videos that we've done which kind of help people with some of the elements of you know, shooting people. We had a fashion photographer, Charlene Christie, on there, and Charlene shared a whole lot of information. We've had Darren Jew on there sharing stuff. We've had David Stowe, who's an amazing wildlife photographer. David's shared a lot of his techniques for shooting wildlife. So the idea is we're building up this kind of resource, and those resources will be there for. Jules has created a lot of resources that you put up in the file section as well.
Just through the challenges, just with the tips on, you know, so like that Adaminsky, I need to learn how to say it, effect, so that people, you know, someone may have only just joined the group and they're like, oh, I'm interested in that. We've got all the files. We've got a file section where you can go back and it, you know, it's listed all the different sort of educational things.
If you join now, you can go back to whatever's been posted.
Whereas
Facebook is a little bit hard to navigate if you're looking for something old.
So the group structure is good with that, with the file section. And there's even things like there, like how to update your firmware on your camera. So people hear about firmware and they go, oh, what is this firmware?
That question comes up so often. How do I update my firmware?
So we've created a document around that takes you through the steps of being able to update your firmware on your camera. So
Because that's important. So
it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
It's always exciting. I think the last, R5 firmware update gave us a few extra bits and bobs. It is exciting. I think it is. I love that stuff.
So just before we finish up, so you both use the R5.
Yes.
What's your go-to lens or setup?
Oh, that's so when I got the R5, I've got 6 lenses, but only 2 of them are RF lenses, and I think the RF lenses are better. So probably my favourite lens out of the RF lenses is the 70-200, and I use that in my portrait photography. I love that lens. Yeah, so that's probably my favourite RF lens, and then I've got the 100mm macro in the EF, which I actually never use for macro photography. It's just a good. I just like So they're probably my 2 favourite lenses.
And then so you're studio based mainly for your portrait.
Oh no, probably it's probably 50-50 studio and location. So yeah.
Cool. Jules, we had a question come in specifically for you. What is your favourite motor race you've ever photographed?
Monaco.
Okay.
It's easy. Yeah, that was like that. When we went to Monaco, my husband was racing in a support category. So as a competitor, this is a long time ago, you basically you had a pass that you could go anywhere you wanted. So I wasn't an official photographer. I just went as, you know, and that blew my mind. Like, you could you could just go wherever you wanted and take photos. You know, and you were basically back then, like I'm talking a long time ago, you were standing next to the professional photographers. Like I'm sure now, you know, you can't get anywhere near. So that was pretty wild.
You got a name for it? You kind of met someone that was a reasonably good race driver.
No, yeah, I'm a big race car fan. So
That's cool.
Cool.
And what about your gear? Cool.
So I still got a 5D Mark IV, which I still use with, typically I've got the 70-200 2.8 on that one.
Yep.
But the R5 in the street photography, it's just the 24-105 RF.
Yep.
I've had all the kind of 105 L series lenses, the series 1, series 2,
Yep.
and the RF lens is just such a sweet lens, especially on the R5.
it definitely makes a difference.
It
Like,
does, yeah. It just, I don't know, there's something about it. It's just really nice.
no, just with the result.
Oh, I see.
A shooting, I think, you know, and to be honest, like I said, it's a big expense changing to the R5 and then lenses. So I'm doing it gradually, but I'm finding I'm less using my EF lenses than the
Yeah.
RF.
And my other favourite lens is the 50mm prime 1.2 RF lens. That is a very sweet piece of glass. But the other surprising lens that I bought, and I'm really surprised, is the RF 600. Bang for buck, that lens is a great lens for people hunting wildlife, people want to get out there and shoot.
Yeah.
And a little tip I'll tell you with the R5, which is really good, you can set up one of the back buttons to go to crop sensor.
Oh, okay.
So you get a 1.6 crop. So you're getting about 960mm lens out of that, so which is good for birding.
Yeah.
It drops, obviously you're dropping megapixels by cropping, but it gives you that extra reach.
You can do that
On the R.
in Photoshop.
You can, no, but
I do that all the
yeah,
time.
do you?
Yeah.
Great for moonshots too. That lens, you can do amazing handheld moonshots,
Yeah, right.
especially if you use 1.6 crop.
Have to borrow it. I
Yeah,
haven't
you
tried
try
that.
it. Yeah, it's a
Haven't
great.
tried that one
It's
yet.
very. I mean, it's not an expensive lens.
Yeah.
It's not an L series, but Jules loves. She's had played with the.
100 to 500. I've got that one on order. I love that lens. Yeah.
So I think
So
eventually.
there's an RF 600. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
No. Yeah, RF 600. So there's an 800 and a 600. Yeah. So they're just a black lens. So they're not an L series. They're not a white body. Yeah.
Come into CameraPro and check it out.
Yeah, come and check it out.
Oh, we just happen to have one.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'll check that out.
All
I'll have
right,
a-
well, I think that brings us to the end. It's been really awesome. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Before we finish, so next up on the couch is Ben Lee. So on the 7th of December, Ben's coming in. But yeah, thanks so much for coming. I think that's
Thanks
been
for
really
having
awesome.
us.
Thanks for having us. We really
Thank
enjoyed it.
you.
Yeah, so good. And yeah, everyone do the Click Awards. They sound
Yep.
really
And,
cool.
Yeah.
and hit us up with messages.
Yeah, anything.
Any
Yeah.
on the group, people can
And
message
if there
us.
was any questions we didn't answer,
Yeah. Well, that's what
yeah, on the page or DM us.
we get lots of DMs.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you on the 7th back here.